this December 7th through 9th. Check out the EdUp Experience podcast live and in person in Doha, Qatar for the World Innovation Summit on Education. We will be documenting the ideas and innovations from today's most influential global education leaders. Check them out at wise-qatar.org and follow the EdUp Experience podcast for more information. Yay! LeadSquared is a cutting-edge CRM platform for enrollment management. With LeadSquared, you will deliver a seamless student experience, streamline admissions processes, lower costs, and increase retention. Schedule a demo at leadsquared.com. Welcome back, everybody. This is the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salustio back with you again. That's my co-host. She's the only one that cops for me. My applause is not robust, as I've said on previous episodes. That's the only one that seems to fit for me. And I'm happy, excited for my co-host today and my guest, but I'm going to bring my co-host in first. And she is a wonder in higher education, doing so much. And we've been connected for, I don't know, probably about a year. And I said, you know what? She needs to get on here and co-host with me. Here she is, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on. Dr. Amardeep Kalan. Did I get that right? Kalan?
Yep.
All right. Welcome, Amardeep. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me here. So I'm at Unity College in Maine as just to let the listeners know.
Yeah, but she's dean at Unity College, and I had this for you. Do you think that's appropriate to introduce you? I thought that was a good one.
Absolutely perfect.
Amardeep, it just fit for me, and I'm excited to have you. You excited to be here?
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for this opportunity, and I'm really excited to meet Saúl of Fresno State today.
Well, let's just bring him in right now, and we'll do it appropriately with an applause here. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Saúl Jiménez. Oh gosh, I got your name wrong. Let's try that again. Hold on, we're going to go one more time. We're going to 3, 2, 1. Dr. Saúl Jiménez-Sandoval, president at California State University, Fresno. Saúl, how are you?
I'm doing great. Nice to meet you, Joe. And it's also great to connect with Amardeep.
You know what? Anybody who's listening to this is going to hear this and not know that I totally screwed up your name, because we're going to cut that part out. So I'm going to apologize and tell you that you have the coolest first name I think of any. Saúl. It's like I didn't just give it enough oomph, so I had to redo it. Saúl.
No worries.
I love it. How are you doing, and how is it out in Fresno?
Doing great. Fresno is doing great as well. We had some rain today, so that's a good sign. We're doing very well.
Well, this is an important episode, Saúl, to have you here, because we're in the middle of or in the tail end of Hispanic Heritage Month, and we're talking to a lot of Latino and Latina leaders in higher education. In fact, at the EdUp Experience podcast, we have our own a page dedicated to Latino and Latino leaders in higher ed. You were recommended to us by one of the best, Dr. Millie Garcia, who said, you got to interview Saúl. And we went out and we said, we're going to go get you. And we did. And fortuitously, it seems like there's a lot of news in California, as this was unplanned. Like, we had you on the schedule, and then the governor went out and approved like a $41 billion higher education package that passed. Can you talk a little bit about some of the details of the higher education initiative that was just recently passed by the governor, and what the impact will be for the California system?
Yeah, I think that will be an incredible impact to us, because it will really establish a clear pathway to higher education. And more than anything, I believe we will begin to foment a culture of higher education and the value of higher education, not when our students are in junior high, and not when they're in high school, but early on in their careers. I'm talking about kindergarten, pre-K. This is really when we begin to really foster that sense of community and that sense of belonging at higher education universities. So I'm really very excited about that. I believe it's going to be an incredible game changer, not just for the California State University system, but for California in its entirety. And I do believe as well that this is directly connected to that future of California that we all aspire. We are the 5th largest economy in the world right now, but in order to keep cutting edge, we need to foment that economy, and higher education is the place to do it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know that California's economy is the 5th largest in the world, like versus the rest of the countries in the
Right.
world. That the state of California has the 5th largest economy in the world, and partially hurt pretty significantly by coronavirus, and now experiencing a little bit of a resurgence, but a necessary focus on higher ed. And one of the things that I think is most impactful with this education package is the transfer pathway clarity that needs to be created. And the California, the governor is saying, hey, look, you can go to a California community college. You have to have a clear pathway to the Cal State system. The community college system has to have organized naming conventions of their courses so that students can understand them, and that pathway to the Cal State system is clear. It's all about transfer pathways, right? Because there's so many students in the California community college system, like 2 million or something, that getting them with clarity to the Cal State system is critical for educating California.
And I think it's critical also to establish a very streamlined pathway that is not built with roadblocks, that is not built with physical roadblocks. We have to keep in mind that our students many times come to us and they have glass ceilings imposed upon them by themselves or by society, and then they themselves reinforce this. But on top of that, when the student encounters roadblocks, as far as institutional roadblocks or whatever it might be, then they get discouraged. So how can we really facilitate that pathway to higher education and really showcase how it is that the California State University system, it's really an open door of opportunities, not only for themselves, but for their families as well. And not only within their lifetime, but within the future lifetimes of their descendants, if they do have kids, right? Once the parent comes to college, it is almost guaranteed that the children will also follow in their steps. So we're building a college going culture within the Valley and within all of California, really focused on that bright future of the economic powerhouse that California is.
And I'm going to pass it to my co-host Amardeep here in a second, but let me ask you one more question. There's a huge Latino and Latina population in California. Mm-hmm. Do you think that that those students who are in the community college pipeline from the Latino Latina community aren't getting through to the 4-year as often as they should? Or is there some kind of roadblock in the transfer pathway? Is it financial? Is there a lack of understanding? Because and the reason I ask is because I think it's well documented that if we don't do a better job of educating the Latino and Latina community, we're going to be hurting years from now. The economy of our country is going to be hurting because it's the fastest growing population of folks. What do we need to do to get more students to go from that 2-year to 4-year in the Latino and Latina community?
I do believe that right now at Fresno State, for example, the institution where I am, we do reflect the demographics of the region. So the region is roughly 52-53% Latino, and Fresno State is 52-53% Latino as well. So I do believe that message is being conveyed to them because I think that our communities, by and large, and when I mean our communities, I mean the multicultural communities that make the Central Valley their place, their home, they do see the value of higher education. However, we do see a small trend of the applications coming to Fresno State and also the applications coming to the community colleges that has slightly begun to go down. So because of that small trend, we have reinforced our efforts to reach out to the community colleges and to reach out as well to the high schools and to let them know really what it is that Fresno State does for the region. Many people don't realize that the region is fully and entirely permeated by the power of the disciplines of Fresno State. If you were to come to the Fresno region and you would just go to any institution within the Fresno region, you will find alumni from Fresno State everywhere, upholding the quality of life of everyone in the Valley within these institutions. And I think we need to be more front and center about how it is that higher education for the everyday person, concretely manifests in very specific ways, in very specific benefits to society, not just to society in general, but to someone specifically going to a hospital, for example, with the nurses, or someone going to the supermarket, with how it is that our farming industry has really benefited from the research at Fresno State, or the business sector, or the engineering sector, on and on and on. I could give you a long list of disciplines that really impact the everyday life of individuals in the Valley, just because Fresno State has existed here for more than 110 years. So based on that, I think it's up to us to let our population know this is what your university is doing right now, and this is what the value of the university is moving forward, not just to the region, but to the individual specifically.
Love that. Amardeep.
Wow, thanks, Saúl. That was great. It sounds like Fresno State is really involved in some great initiatives, because I read about your $1.25 million grant for women engineering professors as well.
Yes.
So, there are many colleges and universities right now listening to this, because this is the most popular podcast on higher ed.
Thank you, Amardeep. You can come back anytime.
Okay. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the new learner in higher ed. The traditional learner, the one who comes out of high school, or the post-traditional who's slightly older. But the new learner, as we are seeing around the country, is someone who's much older, who's got a life going on around them. And they are the ones who are most lost through the cracks. They are the ones who are the quickest to fall out should life come in the way. And Fresno State actually increased its enrollment during the pandemic, which congratulations.
Thank you.
And what advice would you give to colleges and universities around as they're dealing with this new learner, much like what you just talked about, your community and how Fresno State is in the community? So what would you tell some colleges and universities how to engage this learner, how to keep this learner?
That's a great question, Amardeep. And for that question, I go to certain facts about Fresno State that are very illustrative. So 80% of the students at Fresno State who graduate stay in the region. That's 80% of all of our graduates who make Fresno their home, or the Fresno region their home as well. Within that, there's a very direct impact that Fresno State has on the surrounding region. It's undeniable. We graduate approximately 6,300 students every single year, and out of that, 80% of them stay right here and build the community with us, together with the expertise that they take with them. So having said that, we also need to go into another historical perspective. Fresno State is more than 110 years old and has grown up, literally with the city of Fresno, and literally with the region of Fresno as well. And that history implies a certain industry. And every single university out there will have this history, will have this relationship with the community that surrounds it. So how do we then hone in that relationship? How do we define that relationship? What are the impact points of that relationship? What are the benefits to the surrounding community, to the economy of that community as well? Within Fresno, the region, the main powerhouse right now and always has been agriculture. That's really the backbone of the economy within the region. And agriculture has gone through several stages, over the years. We began with figs, and then from figs, we moved to raisins. From raisins, we moved to raisins and table grapes. From that, we brought in the stone fruit, the peaches and the nectarines, et cetera, et cetera. And then from that, we had to diversify when the market changed, and now nuts are big. So pistachios and walnuts and almonds. I guarantee you that if you buy an almond out into the world, it will most likely come from this region, because we produce upwards of 85% of all the world's almonds. So within all of that, then take a historical perspective of what the region is all about. In my case, the region's roots are deeply ingrained within what agriculture means to the people and to the economy. I am seeing now Fresno State in a holistic approach as president, because I actually grew up at Fresno State as well. I was a professor of Spanish and Portuguese poetry here, and then I went on to become a dean. From a dean, I became a provost. From a provost, I became the interim president, and then I became the permanent president of Fresno State just in May. So having that perspective allows me to say the following: if our roots are in agriculture, how can I predict the future as far as what the industry is going to require us to do? And within that, I look to one single fact that comes to mind. By the year 2050, we will be 9 billion people in the world, and we will have to produce 60% more food to feed the world's population. So having said that, I have to then look at my disciplines and say, my disciplines for the most part have been siloed. The engineers are in one part, the farmers are in another part, the business people are in another part, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas because I grew up in a farm, and because where I grew up with a father, who was a farmer, what do I know? I know that farmers are the best engineers. I know that farmers know how to fix things, and I know that farmers know how to invent things as well. And that is the perfect definition of an engineer. Moving forward, then, having this perspective, what do I say to myself? I say the following: we need to merge, we need to collaborate, we need to hybridize, engineering specifically with the ag industry, because that's really where we're going to see that energy that will provide us that solution to that 60% more food that we have to produce by the year 2050. So to the universities out there, I say the following: know your history, number one, so that you can determine what your future will be. And then number two, really know the impact that you have within your region, really know the impact that you have within the students who come to you. Where are these students going? Is it an international? Is it a national impact? If so, then hone in on that and really move forward with a vision that speaks to your past in order to determine the future.
Wow, Amardeep, I don't know if I was clear at the beginning of the episode that your questions needed to be worse than mine, not better. That was a significantly better question than anything I've asked. Look at that. Look at the answer that you got out of that one. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
Don't make it a habit,
So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to that.
Sure,
when we're talking about learners, there is a class of learner which higher education seems to have kind of pushed to the side. And that is the massive, massive incarcerated population of the US. What is, there are some schools and universities trying to educate that population. And as we know, and Joe, I hope I'm not being politically incorrect here when I say that there is a lot of people who are incarcerated for longer than they should be.
And say whatever you want on this podcast, Amardeep. By the way, can I add to this? I don't know where you're going with the question, but I think there's proportionally significantly more males incarcerated, which is adding to the lack of male degree holders in higher education. The female women are almost at a 2-to-1 attainment rate, or will be soon.
Exactly. And not just males, Joe, it's males of color who are more significantly incarcerated. Yeah. So how can we as a higher education industry, how can we, and not just Fresno State, but as an industry as a whole, what can we do to serve that population? Because the US has the highest recidivism rate in the world, because we don't rehabilitate.
That's right.
So how can we serve this population by giving them the skills? Because they need skills when they get out, they need skills to work.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. And the other fact, that we can add to your question is that approximately 85% of the inmates get out.
Yes.
So if that's the case, then what do we do about this population of individuals who have a past, but who have to be incorporated into our society as productive citizens? As Dean of Arts and Humanities, I began collaborating with a program that was just really revolutionary for me in understanding the need that higher education has in relationship to our inmates, our inmate population, specifically in California and specifically in the Central Valley. And this was a prison art. So I was the Dean of Arts and Humanities, and I was approached then, by this organization. And at that point, then I agreed to put resources for the following. We will train and have our students teach art to inmates, and not just teach art. It wasn't just the poetry, and it wasn't just the painting, and it wasn't just the watercolor. It was like, we're going to come up with a poem, and then you are going to reflect on the poem. You're gonna draw, a charcoal for me, and you're going to talk about that charcoal, that you produce, or you will, paint an oil painting, and then you will talk about it and reflect on what that means to you. What happened during that process was incredible, in that the student was able to reflect on past history. The student was able to reflect on family relationships. The student was able to reflect on these issues that were there, that were hurting, and that he was not able to process appropriately based on cultural impositions of what masculinity was, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the process, then what we had was individuals who introspectively philosophized about themselves, about the mistakes they had made, about the value of their relationships with family, with significant others, et cetera, and about what they wanted to be and what they wanted to become after they got out of prison. And that in itself was really what drove me then to really start collaborating with Project Rebound at Fresno State. It was very much involved with all of this. And we now are aggressively pursuing a bachelor's in social sciences with our prisons, in the area, because I believe that if we educate our inmates, if we let them have that space, that internal space within them, and let them know that they do represent value to society, that we will then in the future have a very low recidivism rate, and we will have productive citizens that now understand and that now are able to articulate a vision for what society and what self means and what relationships mean to them in the future as well. So I do believe that the university and higher education has a very specific role to play in providing these individuals that door of opportunity on the one hand, but on the other hand, really presenting our community with this benefit of lower recidivism means it's actually a win-win situation. It's less expensive to have people be productive than to have them in prisons,
especially to the taxpayers. That's
for sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
LeadSquared isn't only an enrollment CRM. It's a technology that will allow you to optimize your entire front-end student lifecycle by providing decision makers with real-time customizable dashboards. Forecasting, measuring, and optimizing for key activities will increase retention and revenue, and LeadSquared will lower technology costs simultaneously. Not only can LeadSquared align with existing admissions processes, but the technology will also help you innovate beyond what you thought was possible. The ability to access data on your phone will keep you connected, and when you add in the world-class customer service, LeadSquared transcends being a technology. It's an experience. Check them out at leadsquared.com.
Well, and let me, I like to keep you on your toes here at the EdUp Experience. So I'm going to ask you a question, Saúl, kind of unrelated to, directly unrelated to higher education. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right, here we go. I got to get my myself here together. Here we go. Saúl, this is your chance to answer this question for $1 billion. And here you go. There's a song playing on the overhead, Saúl, as you walk into a room at Cal State Fresno. It's your entrance music. What song would be playing?
What song would be played? My entrance music? Probably our victory song for the Bulldog song for our football games. That's probably the song that I would want to be.
I would call it. You know what? I would call. I'd hit the incorrect button if it were not for the fact that you've been there for like, well, how many years? 22 years.
21 years.
Yeah, 21 years. So you get the correct button. If I can find it here, I can't find it, but you get it. It's a correct answer. Would be incorrect for most folks, and that brings me to. I'm glad you said that, because that brings me to my next question, which is, you took over the presidency full-time in May of this year, correct?
Yeah, I did. Yes.
All right. So even though you've been at Cal State Fresno for 21 years, if coronavirus did not exist and you took the same exact path, taking over in May, you'd kind of have an agenda. And you know, the B, that's A. B is coronavirus does exist. And you come in May and you have an agenda with coronavirus being this umbrella or this tornado around your agenda. What did you do when you came into this role? I know you're interim for a little while, but as you came into the role full time, how do you think about your priorities during still the tail end of hopefully the tail end of a pandemic?
I think without Corona, I would not be considering in a very significant way our virtual online presence. I would not say to myself, for example, the future of Fresno State must be inherently tied with virtual online delivery of instruction in some element or the other, either in a hybrid way or in a way that will be, you know, somewhat significant. That's one part. But the other part with Corona, I have doubled down on my vision of what the university experience is all about. In my mind, there are two main pillars that really sustain student success at Fresno State. And I would say that, you know, at many other universities as well, the one pillar, of course, is that sense of belonging, the getting involved with clubs and organizations, having the right services for our students to succeed, such as tutoring and advising, and having just a place in which students say, this is where I belong. This is the space with which I identify, and this is the university that belongs to me. And after, you know, I graduate from this place, I'm going to become, you know, X professional, and I'm going to give back. I think that's one pillar that is fundamental, that is so elemental. You cannot be without this one fundamental element. The second one, of course, is the one that is mostly widely focused on. It's really academic success for our students. If I have an engineer and this engineer is not doing well in a calculus class, I worry for her. I worry for her because I want her to become successful in that calculus class so that she can, you know, go across that hurdle as a freshman and then really say, now I'm going to go into my majors classes and I'm really going to focus on, you know, like the field that is really my passion. So these two elements have to work together really, really well. And the experience of college, the value of college to me, it is, of course, that you get a degree, and it is, of course, that you get this knowledge that, you know, becomes sort of like second nature to you, becomes part of like your DNA. I absolutely agree with that, and I absolutely advocate for that. But more than anything, the value of college deals with the experience of being on campus. The value of college is, you know, inherently tied to being in a classroom and being with other fellow students, getting to know students, growing emotionally, growing intellectually, asking questions, figuring things out collectively, and then thinking to yourself, I am growing as an individual by getting to know people, by getting to know myself, by really finding my place in the world. And that experience cannot, in my mind, be fully replicated to its fullest extent if it's just all virtual. I know that the virtual component has to be developed. I know that we have to hone in on, how do we manage that? But I do believe that we have to have that presence on campus, that presence in person, in order for that psychological, emotional development of our students to happen and to really mature in a way that is deeply satisfying to them. Whenever I ask our alumni, tell me about Fresno State. What did Fresno State do for you? Eventually, they will come up. I had this one professor who deeply impacted me. I had this one class that really, really spoke to me. And then I figured myself out in the world. And that is fundamentally tied to being present and being in person as well. So Corona has really given me the opportunity to reflect on its lessons. And one of the greatest lessons that I have is that we human beings like to be with each other and learn when we are with each other in order to become, these professionals that we need in the real world.
That's you, Saul. You're like a rocket. I feel like you've got so much energy. You're ready to explode, and I absolutely love it. You just got so much going on. Amardeep, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks. So my area, Saul, my area of expertise, as Joe knows, is competency-based education. Sure. And it's tied to workforce education, and it's tied to communities and jobs and skills. Where do you think universities should do by not getting rid of the well-rounded education that liberal arts provides, but also bringing in this value that competency-based education brings to the student that is graduating from universities? And is Fresno State doing anything with CBE?
Yeah, so this competency-based education is really important for us here at Fresno State. And the connection between the community and Fresno State, like I stated before, is very, very strong. On average, Fresno State students produce 1 million hours of community work or of service learning or of internships in our community. That's about $47 million worth to the economy that Fresno State produces just through volunteer work or through service learning or through the internships. This last year, you would have thought that the number would have gone down, but it did not. It's 1.23 million for this last year. And that's something that we are extremely proud of. So having said that, what do we do at Fresno State that has worked so well? We have the Richter Center at Fresno State, and the Richter Center really coordinates everything dealing with our involvement with the community. It's great to teach our students in the classroom the theories. It's great to have them, practice in the labs, and it's great to have them see, what is happening with the lessons firsthand within the university. But it's even more phenomenal when we send our students out into the community, and then these students then put into practice in the real world these lessons that they have learned both theoretically and in application within our labs at Fresno State. And we have seen an incredible amount of data coming out of the Richter Center that really reinforces two main things. Number one, it reinforces our students' resolve to graduate faster. And number two, it really reinforces our students' resolve to find their passion in life and then to really pursue that profession right after they graduate from us. So right now, front and center, I am really focused on having this experiential learning-based project for our students in every single facet, in every single discipline at Fresno State. I believe in that power specifically. I remember being actually a student at UC Irvine as an undergraduate, and I remember being involved with Humanities Out There. And Humanities Out There simply was something very basic, right? They gave us a reading, we would then analyze the reading, and then we would go into the high school and teach the reading to the high school students who were in advanced Spanish classes. That was revolutionary to me. But I want that same experience to happen with every single graduate at Fresno State in the coming years. And we're going to get there because we already have the infrastructure ready for it through our Richter Center that coordinates all of the service learning components at Fresno State.
Can I just jump in and say there's something that doesn't make sense about you, Saúl? And
What's
I got to
that?
tell you, you've been in California for like 21 years at Cal State Fresno. You went to UC Irvine, you said?
I did. Yeah.
And then you went to Cornell, which is in upstate New York.
Right.
So you left what? You left palm trees and ocean air for, I'm from Syracuse, so I know very well.
I know Syracuse pretty well.
Yeah, I bet you do. You got stuck in the snow there like the rest of us.
Yeah.
How do you can make that connection for us? I mean, did you just decide I got to leave California at some point, or
so let me tell you. Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. Really brief biography on me. I was born in Mexico. I came to Fowler, which is a city 15 minutes south of Fresno, at the age of I was about to be 10 by that point. So let's just say that I was 10. And then I grew up in the region. I grew up in a farm. And then after that, I went off to UC Irvine. And then I did, the degrees and everything else. And after that, I came back to the region that gave me the opportunity to become who I was. I remember going through the Fowler schools, and I remember having these very powerful, encouraging mentors along the way, in very strategic moments of my life. One of my teachers would reach out to me and say, I believe in you. I believe in the power that you have within your mind. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you get there. So I wanted to give back to the community that gave me so much. And that's why I came back to this region. This region is not, it's not foreign to me. I grew up here from the age of 10 on. I was away from my college, my university experience. But right after that, I came back because I was very intentional about giving back to those who had given so much to me.
You must have had an affinity for snow at that point, and you decided, yeah, no, I don't think so. Just like I did when I grew up in Syracuse. I was ready to go for my undergrad, and I'm like, where am I going to go for my undergrad? I went to Oneonta, New York, which probably you're familiar with, which is in that area. Yeah. And I said, what am I going to do after this? I'm going to go where the sun shines. That's what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
So, Joe, I got my master's at SUNY Binghamton, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. You guys know snow as much as I do then. Yeah. That's great. I do want to just very, very quickly have you talk about the DiscoverE.
Let's do that.
Yeah, the DiscoverE, technology platform or initiative because of what it's doing for equity gaps and for students to reduce their cost.
Sure. So in 2014, then President Castro, who is now our chancellor, came to Fresno State. He did a listening tour. And he had an idea that was quite revolutionary. He had the idea that he would provide an iPad to both faculty and students taking classes in order to do two things. One, in order to bring the class together with technology at the foreground, because that's really the future of education, he believed. And number two, to really level the playing field for our students. Our students, I can remember this because I taught at Fresno State for about a little bit less than 15 years. Sometimes my students could not afford their textbooks. I remember being an undergraduate at Irvine and paying for a textbook that cost $25. Fine, I was able to pay $25 back then, right? But then my students, by the time I was teaching them for the same textbook, were paying $125. And somehow, the prices of textbooks just went crazy during that period of time. That was actually quite unfair to most of the students. So I would have students in class who were able to afford the textbook and who did well, and other students who were not able to afford the textbook and had to come to the library, check out the textbook, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end, that really worked against them. So this DiscoverE program then implied the following: all of the textbooks will be textbooks that are free, right? Because you can find a lot of free texts out there in the internet, and will be incorporated within the iPad. They will all have the same platform from which to work, which is the iPad. They will all have an equal playing field in really being successful within that classroom. That's for the student part of it. Of course, the price of textbooks and, you know, the amount of money that they spend in textbooks went down dramatically. On the other hand, of course, we had to empower our faculty. And this is 2014, right? We had to empower our faculty with the right tools on how to incorporate this shiny, powerful tool into the classroom, and how it is that this was going to be the tool that was going to explore new avenues of growth and new avenues of acquiring knowledge and producing knowledge as well. So within that, then we had a two-pronged strategy. One would be for the students, and the other one would be to empower our faculty to really utilize this tool within their classrooms. And the results were phenomenal, which is truly phenomenal. Across the boards, students who were taking DiscoverE classes got better grades than students who were not taking DiscoverE classes. And it was fully integrated because they were able to communicate with each other through chat, through the app. I mean, everything was right. It was an ecosystem that was built for them and that was based on an identity of that one classroom. Now we want to put that on the university level so that we can actually put an ecosystem that speaks about Fresno State services, events, you know, the class, lectures, whatever else it might be, would be right there at the tip of their at their fingerprints.
I love it. Amardeep, you have any more questions before I go to our final two?
I was going to ask more of a fun question.
Sure.
And that is, what do you do to, you know, to chill out after so much stress in the workplace? Or I'm sure, hearing from you, it sounds like you think your job is a lot of fun, but what do you do outside?
Yeah. So Amardeep, you know, I gave that little brief biography of me. When I was named president of Fresno State, I take this as a true honor and a true opportunity. I don't take challenges as roadblocks. I take challenges as opportunities in which I can improve my community, in which I can improve the life of my neighbors, my friends, my family. My family is still in the area. So this is a deeply meaningful position for me. It's not a job, it's a life mission for me. But in order to, you know, calm down and to relax a little bit, you know, chill out, I do run. I'm a runner, and running allows me the ability to sort of like create, you know, sort of like a mental space in my mind that clears and that, you know, establishes a pretty good order of what I need to do next within, you know, my next processes moving forward.
I feel like he's totally lying, and that Amardeep, and that he drinks a Red Bull when he wants to relax.
No, I don't even drink coffee, Joe. How's that?
He is relaxed right now. He's relaxed. That's what, you know.
Yeah, I actually do not drink coffee. So that's you figure it out.
I love it.
My wife turned to me the other day and said, I think you finally found the position that keeps up with your energy. So,
yeah, because you have no downtime. I love it. Well, we like to ask our guests the same two questions. Number one, Saúl, we want to know what we missed about Cal State Fresno. What, you know, Amardeep, this is her first time co-hosting with me. I'm sure she forgot to ask you something that you were hoping to talk about. Of course, I didn't forget to ask you anything. She might have. Right, right, Amardeep?
Way to throw me under the bus, Joe.
Well,
Thank
you know, that's my job here at the EdUp Experience, Amardeep. What did we forget to ask you? Anything that you want to say, plug, talk about at all about Cal State Fresno? And number two, what do you see as the future of higher education?
Sure. So Fresno is this multicultural community that has had waves of immigration, you know, very early on in its history. And we see the contributions of each of these waves of immigration. I gave you a brief synopsis of how we began with figs. These were the Armenians who brought the figs, and then they turned to grapes and raisins. A lot of the Armenian population also did that. And then the stone fruit was brought in by our Asian population. The Japanese specifically really brought, you know, to the foreground all of that. So I give you this sort of like as a sense to tell you the following. The Fresno region speaks more than 120 languages. We have restaurants from around the world. We might be quote unquote rural, but we are the 5th largest city in all of California. And within that, we are a powerhouse that produces food for the world. But we're a strong community in that we care for each other, we know each other, and we have a really strong sense of where we're going in the future. And that future is a future of the multicultural community coming together to really envisioning how it is that we come up with industry that speaks to our valley, and industry that really speaks to the economic vitality of the Central Valley in connection to the California that we spoke about at the beginning as well. So I would like to leave our listeners with Fresno as this multicultural place that is exciting, that has incredible fresh fruits and vegetables year round at our farmers market, that is very, very much in unity with each other, and that celebrates the cultures that we have here in the Valley, because they're part of our history and they're also part of our future. And then as far as the future of higher education, then I would say that the future of higher education must have in its core the experience of who we are as humans. And that experience of who we are as humans cannot, in my mind, be fully replicated in the online virtual modality. We can have hybrid. We can have a hybrid approach, but I do believe that being present, being at the campus, does provide us with that opportunity to grow, both emotionally, both academically, and within what we are given, the talents that we are given. So the future of higher education does include virtual, does include online, but I do advocate very strongly for that experience of being present, of that experience of being with each other and figuring things out as a community.
Wow. Love that. Love it, love it, love it. Amardeep, what a pleasure to have you here today and co-hosting with me for the first but not last time.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks so much. It's great to co-host, and it's great to meet you, Saul, and to meet you, Joe.
Lovely to meet you both.
Yeah, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. His name is Dr. Saúl Jiménez-Sandoval, and he is president of UC Fresno. It has been an absolute honor to have you on today, sir. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks so much. I thank you, and Fresno State thanks you as well for the opportunity to present to you my vision and my love for Fresno State and our university.
Well, Fresno State has a lot going on, that's for sure. I had no idea about the agricultural and product, so I got to learn something today.
I know.
And yeah, if you've been listening, then ladies and gentlemen, you've learned something too, which means you've just EdUp'd.
The LeadSquared integrated CRM functionality will put your institution at the front end of marketing and enrollment strategy by delivering a streamlined admissions process. Capture student interest, segment your audience, create student engagement workflows, and even integrate with your student information system to create longitudinal key performance metrics you've always wanted. You can do all of this and lower your technology costs. Check out LeadSquared.com for more info.